Both players at 10 and 2. So we're not even, when he said live for top 8, we're not even talking about 9 and 3 here.
Right.
These are players who are in the top 16 of the standings at the moment. The winner is almost in top 8.
Right.
Affinity starting out landed to Signal Pest. Leonard did mulligan to 6 this game.
Die roll is a big deal in the matchup.
Yeah, Fumarole for Jake. He has just the 1 copy as opposed to the 2 that Hoagland's playing. See a cranial plating from Leonard. Now, there are no copies of a Braid, at least in the main for Jake, but still, this is a matchup you said you tend to like.
Yeah, the deck does a good job of handling one threat. Currently, Jake does have a couple Wizard's Lightnings. They don't have eyes on a less conditional removal spell just yet. He might be taking the first hit, but this hit's not for very much.
No, Leonard's hand's not working out too well here. You see, puts Cranial Plating on Signal Pest, activates Blink Moth Nexus. Here's an attack with Battle Cry. So it'll be 2 damage off the Nexus. We have 3 artifacts in place. It'll be 3 off the Signal Pest, but Jake has some responses.
Yeah, this looks like it's something. I don't know if it's Opt looking for a Lightning Bolt. Fetching for a blue source feels like that might be the case. There's not really 2 mana effects that are removal spells in the main deck. Maybe flashing in a Spellstarter Sprite to block, that's totally reasonable.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind trading a Spellstarter Sprite with
the 0 mana cards are out of the hand already, right?
Right.
That's a fine removal spell, and yeah, I do see one.
Remember, he's playing the full set. So, just a 1/1 blocker. He'll pick Signal Pest. Put it there. He'll take 2, go to 17. And I like this play from Jake so much. He's converting his deck into more removal.
Worth noting that Leonard attaching the plating to the Signal Pest allowed him to not just lose the Pest in combat there. If that were on the Blink Moth Nexus, that combat would have been a lot better for Jake.
Right. 3rd land here from Jake Anderson.
I don't know if Spellstarter Sprite was necessarily on the radar, but the way he played around it well.
Well, I mean, when my opponent starts Fumarole into fetch land, do I... Man, I would really have to be up on my metagame to think I got to play around Spellstarter Sprite here.
Yeah, I don't know how many players in the field were at least going into this weekend aware of what Wandering Fumarole meant in the format.
Yeah, there aren't any other decks in Modern that play it outright. Leonard's going to pass, and we see Vendilion Click from Jake.
Looks like Jake does have a Galvanic Blast in the holdings, but his deck is very capable of generating just 1-power flyers. He doesn't care that much about Vendilion Click.
Well, actually, we're in the draw step here, which I believe Leonard, he's on the Karn Scion of Urza build of Affinity. If he has a Karn here, that's a pretty big win for Jake, who's about to make the Planeswalker.
And I think he's mostly trying to dodge Etched Champion. Etched Champion plating is real tough to beat, though Karn making a couple tokens would also be a big deal. There is the Karn there.
So with the trigger on, Galvanic Blast shoots down the Vendilion Click. Now Jake has the option of taking Karn or Vault Scourge. He will go ahead and put that Karn to the bottom of the deck.
There are the main deck counterspells, 3 Mana Leak, 3 Remand in Jake's deck, though I assume he has not drawn one if he's taking that Karn, as Leonard won't be able to cast Karn this turn.
Well, what he did do is he drew Leonard into Arcbound Ravager off that Vendilion Click.
With these lands,
I know,
and just plating, Ravager's not great.
It will still be the play from Leonard. You see a thumbs up from Jake, and Vault Scourge. He'll make cast the whole hand. But yeah, you're right. Ravager can only become a 3/3 here, so Jake can just shoot it. No big.
Ooh, and there's Mutavault. That's going to easily turn on Wizard's Lightning.
Ooh, I like that. Playing Mutavault, tapping it. Wizard's Lightning on the Ravager. Yeah, Leonard can't defend it.
Yeah, there's just 2 other artifacts, so you can only stack it up to a 3, and that removes the other creature, so he's just going to modular over. But Jake has another Wizard's Lightning, so the Vault Scourge is down too.
All right, 2 removal spells from Anderson, so now both players playing off the top. For Leonard, that means Vault Scourge.
Leonard already has the plating, so him playing off the top, and he also has the creature land as well, I think he's in a slightly better position. Though a Snapcaster Mage for Jake could be a big deal. Some rolling removal spells to deal with these things. Though it looks like he drew a land and had a Spellsetter Sprite. This is not a good position for Jake.
Yeah, 4 damage in sends Jake down to 10. It's going to activate Mutavault and attack back for 2. And this is interesting. So how do we get to this spot of parity, right? Jake was on the draw and Leonard was on the mulligan, but now somehow Leonard has more stuff left over.
You saw there's just a lot of 1-for-1s happening, and the thing about Affinity is your creature lands really put you ahead in those kind of exchanges. Jake also not applying pressure to go with those lightning bolts. You're trading 1 for 1, and once Leonard has a plating, all of his creatures just matter. All of them demand those lightning bolts, those wizard's lightnings, those trading with Spellstutter Sprite and combat exchanges.
Yeah, Jake does have creature lands, but they're not doing as much here. Springleaf Drum will get Spellstutter Sprite.
Got him.
All right. Normally, it's interesting. I was normally thinking you'd want to hold the Sprite to ambush, but it's not like Leonard can do anything about it.
Yeah,
they're both X ones.
Jake's forced to block here, so you may as well get the drum. He just can't keep taking hits with this plating.
Inkmoth equips, swings the team. Jake says, all right, yeah, I'll trade with your creature. Trades with the Nexus. So Vault Scourge will deal 1.
I think I would have jumped in front of the Scourge. That lifelink next turn with the plating is a big deal.
Yeah, you're putting a lot of pressure on your deck now to give you something that answers Vault Scourge.
And Affinity does not have access to that much reach. It's already been through a Galvanic Blast, so taking a couple more points this turn matters a little bit less than Leonard starting to gain life with the Scourge.
Nimble Obstructionist from Jake. So Vault Scourge will pick up Cranial Plating and attack. Well, it is a 3-mana play. It's not the prettiest kill spell, but Nimble Obstructionist will trade with Vault Scourge.
Obstructionist doesn't race a life-licking Vault Scourge, so that block's pretty forced.
3 more life on Leonard's side, so the race is now strongly in.
And Jake drew Mana Leak. That one is not good.
Well, that's what I think is going to be the problem here, is that Jake does have have a higher density of dead draws.
He can start firing up the Fumarole and hitting for 4, or he can fire up Mutavault and leave up Mana Leak, but he's just way behind on life.
Yeah, now, to be fair, Signal Pest only is attacking for 2 here, and that Mana Leak stands a chance of hitting something.
Yeah.
Another Signal Pest. He's going to Mana Leak just about anything here, and that's an anything. So.
Right.
Vault Scourge hits across for 2. Jake's down to 7.
Yeah, but even with this exchange, they just traded 2 points of damage, and Leonard is ahead by 9 life.
Right. Right now, Jake can swing for 4 to Leonard's 2 with that Fumarole. However, he's behind by enough life points that's still not winning the race.
Yeah. On the table, it is 2 4-turn clocks, but Leonard's deck, almost all of his draws pick up the pace, and there's a Mox Opal that's +1 damage.
Right, so now Jake down to 4.
And any artifact that ends up on the table, that includes creature lands, make this lethal in the following turn.
Another land from Jake. No help there. He's going to need to dodge an artifact. Any artifact will KO him here, but nothing to be done about that. He'll swing a Fumarole for 4 more. Leonard's down to 8. He needs Leonard to hit. Man, there aren't that many draws that aren't artifacts. Needs him to hit a land that is not a creature
Mountain.
Land. Mountain, 4th Spire.
Those are pretty much the only draws.
That is actually it, huh?
Yeah.
And did he do it? Leonard doesn't have the lethal here. He's swinging for 3.
I don't know. Did he draw Galvanic Blast?
Okay, well, that would work too. Yes. All right.
All right. That was just lethal on its own.
I was like, wait, hold on. Why do we lead on that?
So you attack first because there's a lightning bolt. You have Metalcraft still. You respond.
Oh, okay, that's actually smart.
The play makes sense.
Okay, it's not a slow roll. It's actually just a correct play.
Yes.
Well done. Leonard Wernette takes the first game. So let's look at the sideboard. I agree. I like what Wizards has going on, and actually, Jake's got a lot of good sideboard here.
Yeah, we go down the list. 3 Abrade,
Love
2
him.
Alpine Moon, 2 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Izzet Staticaster, a Dispel, an Entrancing Melody, a Magma Spray, a Negate, a Roast, and a Sun Droplet. So the objective here, get most or all of these counterspells out of your deck. Maybe hold on to 1 or 2 Mana Leaks, as they're going to be most of your play against an Edge champion. But you want these 3 Abrades. A Braid on Cranial Plating would have had a dramatic impact on the texture of that game, rather than throwing things at 1/1 creatures.
Well, yeah, we saw this game where Jake was drawing his 3-mana cards. Like, that Nimble Obstructionist, when it had to just trade with everything, felt really bad on Jake's side.
Yes. Izzet Staticaster is phenomenal in the matchup. Magma Spray does enough. Roast is fine. It's whatever.
Yeah, roast. You can roast about some of the creatures. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. I can take it or leave it.
Sun Droplet, I'm assuming that's just for burn? Don't want it here.
Yeah, pretty much exactly burn.
Okay. Now on Leonard's side, Damping Sphere, Etch Champion, Gear Per Aether Grid, Rest in Peace, Ancient Grudge, Bitter Blossom, Dispatch, Spell Pierce, Thoughtseize, Wear Tear, and Whip Flare.
So there's some tension with Bitter Blossoms.
Yeah.
It's a low floor against the Lightning Bolt deck, but it's a very high ceiling against a deck full of X1s.
I'm really interested. So I think the tension here is, 1/1s are great. Losing one life each turn is really weak here.
Right. I imagine that it's worth it, and it is just one copy. And frequently, Leonard's going to get on the battlefield faster. It's not like he's going to start out behind and then commit a Bitter Blossom when he's already behind. He's probably going to cast a bunch of spells on the first or the second turn of the game and supplement with Bitter Blossom and put the pressure on Jake. So it's going to be really good in spots like that, which I think most of the games are going to play that way. The 2 Etched Champion are great. It's a deck full of Lightning Bolts. The card's excellent. And I actually like Gear per Aether Grid a fair amount in this matchup, as most of Jake's creatures are not going to get out of range.
I was actually thinking the same thing. I was wondering about that. So some of his other high-end cards like Karn, Scion of Urza, not a huge fan of in this matchup, but Aether Grid feels like it could stabilize the game pretty easily.
I'd expect few or no counterspells post-sideboard, which makes Karn a little bit better. But you're right. It's very expensive. The matchup is largely about going quick. His copy of Whip Player is quite good as well.
Yeah.
Another way to deal with all of the creatures in Jake's deck.
I can definitely see that. So if you want to hear about some of the most recent strategy over on the SCG Tour, subscribe to the newsletter at Star City Games. Assume we might get some people talking about Blue-Red Wizards after this weekend.
I can't wait.
Anyway, this is free. You get highlights from our best articles of the week. You get upcoming SCG Tour dates. You can also some free puzzles. Also hear from exclusive content from our SCG writers here on the tour. You can sign up at starcitygames.com/newsletter. Links right on the main page.
An interesting element of sideboarding for Leonard is he has Galvanic Blast, but it's a matchup where Jake's creatures mostly are just going to trade in combat, which is not really something you care about. There's going to be games where it looks kind of good, but there's also going to be a lot of games where it's just kind of worse than having any of his threats, definitely worse than having a lot of his sideboard cards. And I think that that's really the card that I'm most interested in boarding out, despite the fact that he's playing against a creature-heavy deck.
Yeah, and the way that game played out, the Galvanic Blast on the Leonard side didn't look great. I mean, he had one for lethal, but I agree. All his cards already trade with Jake's creatures, so a card that can only trade with Jake's creatures doesn't seem where he wants to be.
Yeah, there was that window where he had Galvanic Blast of Vendilion Click, but he already just had a creature land that can trade with it very easily.
Yeah, every card already trades there.
And it only looked good that he made that exchange because he drew 3 Spire of Industries. Most of the rest of his deck just is already great there.
Sorry if you guys are joining us here. Jake Anderson, one of 2 players to make it into day 2 with Blue-Red Wizards. The other one, Jeff Hoagland, is 12-0. You see him behind there playing against Paul Muller on table 1.
So going into this round, the deck was 22-2.
Right, no buys.
Nope.
A legitimate...
No need.
Yeah. Might be worth a second look.
Or for some, a first look.
Jake on the play here for the second game. Actually just starts out on a basic mountain. Now,
if this means Grim Lavamancer, we're in business.
Yeah, a bit of a departure here is that for both Jake Anderson and Jeff Hoagland, their Blue-Red Wizards deck heavier on blue cards than I think some of the lists that we've been seeing. You know, there's no Soul Scar Mage or Monastery Swift Spear here.
Yeah, just Delver of Secrets for Jake, heavy on Spellstutter Sprite.
All right, Leonard, still going. Turn 1, Drum, Ornithopter, Opal, Land of Cranial Plating. 5 cards.
He also has Gear per Aether Grid in hand. So
oh boy,
that's the play next turn.
And I don't think Jake's kept in any counter spells. I'd be surprised.
I would expect very few, if any. Maybe a Mana Leak or 2.
Yeah, he hasn't. It is a Lavamancer in play and an Izzet Staticaster in hand. Things that are normally really good in this matchup. But if Leonard's play is to dump a bunch of non-creature artifacts into a Gear per Aether Grid, that's gonna trump what Jake's doing.
We'll see if Jake fires off the Lavamancer at the Ornithopter.
Yeah, I guess it does take Leonard off a mana, so there is a reason to do that.
Right. The Opal will still be alive in any land. Puts the grid online, and the grid will have an immediate activation if it is a land off of Stringleaf Drum plus Cranial Plating.
Right.
The Grim Lavamancer and those sideboard Static Casters, those are actually the biggest argument that you might see Leonard leave the Galvanic Blast in the matchup. Specifically answering these creatures that destroy Leonard's creatures can be a big deal.
So we will see main phase shooting down Ornithopter on Jake's side. Then says go, see if Leonard can produce that land to make Aether Grid. Yeah, he has it already. Another Blinkmoth Nexus up at the front.
He also has Etch Champion, and he has Cranial Plating, so he could play Champion, immediately equip it, start attacking with that next turn, put the grid online next turn as well. I think there's a strong argument for this line.
Leonard's hand just has a lot going on, and that's what he's going to do. Etch Champion, and it'll tap to equip itself. Yeah, he'll pass.
And it's not like Jake's deck's going to be able to play Kozilek's Return. One element of the prowess version of Wizards is all of your creatures tend to survive, whereas all of Jake's creatures just die if you cast Kozilek's Return. So on the table, Etch Champion is just going to be good against this configuration of the deck.
Yeah, we've seen attack for 1 from Grim Lavamancer, and that is certainly not going to be enough to race here. And already 4 artifacts in play. This is 6 damage per turn from the champion, so it's a 3-turn clock. It's not too difficult for Leonard to make it a 2-turn clock.
Right. 2 cards in hand. One of them is Aether Grid. That resolving is going to have a pretty profound impact on the game.
Now, hold on. Mutavault actually can block Etch Champion, right?
It is colorless.
Here's an activation of Mutavault, and it's going to trade.
Ooh, that is rough for Leonard. Yeah, he just kind of walked right into that. Had he set up Grid, he could have played around that and started attacking next turn.
Yeah. That's a huge win for Jake.
And kind of that pause there. It feels like Leonard wasn't aware that was going to happen.
Now he does make Aether Grid and shoots down Grim Lavamancer. So a bit of a misstep on Leonard's side, but it's recoverable. The board's still favorable.
I want to say the last card in hand's another Etch Champion.
Okay. Well,
so whatever.
I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. This is a recoverable position.
I'll be interested to see if he's actually going to send it into open mana. There's probably no counter magic. But
he's so light on resources that if you're worried about counter spells, giving your opponent more time to draw them is a pretty significant cost.
Yeah, he's going to make Arcbound Ravager. Don't mind that.
Yeah, that's a fine one.
It's kind of a good test spell. If there's a mana leak, Jake will probably use it.
And Jake has been hanging out with its Static Caster, and Ravager is just great against that.
And Etch Champion with the leftover mana. We'll see if there is a counterspell. There's not. It's just is it Static Caster from Jake. He will shoot down Arcbound Ravager.
I would eat the Springleaf Drum in response.
I could see it.
Yeah, there's currently no creatures to modular over because the Etch Champion is still on the stack. No mana to activate a creature land.
Yeah.
Little value in maintaining the drum. Pretty reasonable value in having the Ravager around.
And he's thinking about eating the Mox Opal instead.
I think the Mox Opal is a fair amount better. The thing about drum is if you draw more drums, you can have multiples for the Gear per Aether Grid.
Yeah, I guess that would be the reason. Otherwise, Opal is just stronger. It seems kind of inconsequential which one he wants to do here.
Yeah, he has a bunch of creature lands. In the face of Is it Static Caster, he probably doesn't want to activate them too much. But the way that the mana works out, Opal is better producing mana. Drum is better because it's not legendary. But my instinct is definitely to sacrifice the drum. The difference is pretty negligible, and there are pros and cons to both. I would sacrifice certainly one.
Yeah, you wouldn't just bin the Ravager?
Doesn't make a huge difference which one he sacrifices.
All right, Mox Opal will go. He'll make the Ravager 2/2. And we pass back. It still feels like what it comes down to, though, is that there's not a way to answer Etch Champion. And as long as that's the case, these decisions aren't going to matter too much.
Right.
If Jake can abrade the cranial plating, maybe.
Leonard missed a point
there
with
he just saw it.
But I don't think that's what this game is about.
He noticed it right now. I think what he's asking is whether or not...
Yeah.
Whether it's reversible.
I fully untapped. I haven't drawn yet. Can I put my board into 17 is the question.
They're going to ask the judge.
Yeah, I have no idea what the ruling is. It doesn't seem like it really matters much.
Yeah, tapping, depending, this judge really could rule this one either way. It depends what was said, what actions were made. This will be a quick ruling, so we'll go ahead and stick with the table on it.
Right. Given that his permanents were spread out and it was 2 full motions and his hands came off, that's usually an argument that you don't get it.
What I've noticed, I know that in my situation, once I've started drawing the card, I never win this judge call. If I
that's a
haven't,
deal breaker.
then it can go both ways.
Right.
Yep, judge rules, no, can't activate it. You are already in the untap motion. So 1 point missed, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't think it changes the clock. Here's Dutch champion.
Yeah, Edge champion hitting for like 100, so
Yeah.
1 point is pretty whatever.
It's a hit for 6. Yep. Jake down to 12.
And the way the math breaks down, there's not really an incentive to get fancy and move things around with the Ravager. You can only do +1 the way the plating and Ravager math works out. So you could put the Ravager counters on the champion, put Jake to 11, but to what end? Again, that's just 1 point.
You're just not losing. Like, until you think you might be losing the race, why do anything here? He has a really safe board.
Right.
I guess his worry would be if he doesn't know the Wizards list isn't stock yet. So you might be worried that maybe Jake's going to Shatter Storm you or something.
I know
right?
that Harlan Fear is a big advocate for having Shattering Spree, which would bust up your cranial plating, but then your Ravager actually gets to change the math, and you have creature lands. The Staticaster makes things weird with that.
Right. So on the other side, there might be some fear of the unknown here, which is I don't. You have some anti-artifact card.
Right.
My thought, if I'd never seen the Wizards list before, would be this is a deck that really seems like it would want to play a Braid. So
that's the most generic,
right?
And also when it comes to players thinking they have enough against Affinity, that's the kind of thing where you hear a lot of on the tournament hall. Oh, Affinity's fine. I have a Braid.
Yeah, I mean, if you have enough of Braids, you can say it's fine, and you're probably right. Even with 4,
I've
you
beaten
don't like
a lot of Braids with Affinity. When you say I have if you tell me you have 2 Stony Silence, okay, all right, I'll lose to a Stony Silence. I'm not going to lose to a Braid.
All right, so no. So you think, in addition to a Braids, you may on the face side expect your opponent to have some card like Vandal Blast, Shattering Spree, Shatterstorm.
If they played the matchup a lot and it is something they're concerned about, I would expect more than a Braid.
Okay.
And Staticaster is more than a Braid, to be fair.
Yeah, that's true. The Staticaster would be typically good here, but this specific board is not helping.
Etch Champion's a beating.
Here's Signal Pest from Leonard. Here's an Aether Grid activation and some food for the Ravager. Spellstutter Sprite. All right, that is a clean answer, too.
Got him. Well, Leonard could have killed the Sprite in response to the trigger, actually. Could have just gridded that down. There would be 0 fairies in play, and the pest would resolve. Now,
and then it would die to Staticaster.
I don't believe that Leonard has ever played against Spellstutter Sprite with Affinity.
Well, here's another Signal Pest. See, we are doing this because if we played both Signal Pests, then the Staticaster would get us.
That's just not true.
He deals 1 before the Signal Pest dies. Try sacrifice to Ravager. Jake's going to try to bolt in response.
You can just shove the Ravager counters under the champion here. I don't think it makes sense to sacrifice anything in addition.
Actually, Shuta says, why don't you shove them onto the Signal Pest? Oh, no, you
already
already sacked it?
Yeah,
okay.
That would not be a legal play.
Well, it wasn't visually in the graveyard yet.
Yeah.
All right. Jake's down to 3, though, and there's still that Metalcraft being maintained. So unless he's got some Braids, this doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's some combinations from here. If you can abrade the 3rd artifact,
Staticaster the
but
land.
you need something. You need Staticaster land, and also it needs to be abrade specifically or roast for Edge Champion because it's up to 4 toughness now.
Right, that's the problem. It's just a 4/4 on its own.
So you remember what I was saying about an abraid?
You need like 7 Abrades.
I'm not losing to an abraid.
I guess if you want like 3 Abrades, that's the card Shattering Spree.
Yeah, stable them all together.
So a lot of damage here. Jake's going to do as much as possible. You see Wizard's Lightning, Snapcaster, Wizard's Lightning, but then he extends the hand. He cannot answer. And Leonard Wernette is going to pick up the win here in round 13. Improves him to 11-2. Certainly one more win will get him into top 8. He's got